Welcome to Chasing Aesthetics, where fitness meets science.
Is if do I really need to come back to maintenance volume in order to resensitize that volume, or can I just stay in in a high volume every time?
Yeah. So this is a good one. And just to be completely upfront, I don't know the correct answer to this. I'm not sure if someone is going to see more hypertrophy by doing these lower volume resensitization phases. And I think that if someone tells you that they're 100% sure that they're going to grow more by doing these phases, that they're probably blowing a little bit of smoke there, because I don't think that the research is there right now to suggest that, hey, these things are going to 100% mean that you grow more. With that said, I do think that there's some potential rationale for why these phases make sense. And one of these reasons deals with kind of adaptive resistance. And basically what this means is the more you kind of do something with your training stress, the more that your body kind of gets better at resisting those kind of adaptations. So an example might be that once you kind of get somewhat of a suntan, then it's kind of a little bit more difficult to get burnt. So your body kind of gets better at resisting some of these things as you get more trained. So a more specific example to what we're talking about might be when you first start training, when you've never trained before, one set of squats is probably going to make you pretty dang sore. But then once you're 3 to 5 years into it, you might be able to do several sets of squats before getting, pretty dang sore. So that's kind of an example of our body kind of starts to resist things when we push the same stress over and over and over again. So if you're always pushing that same stress of hypertrophy training, the idea is that your body might start to kind of resist this a little bit. And it might do this by kind of down regulating some of these more anabolic pathways in the body and certain things like that, and make it a little bit more difficult to gain muscle. Now, whether you need to do these phases is a tough question, but that's a potential rationale for them. And along with that, I think that there's also other benefits besides just anabolic resistance. So I think that a lower volume phase may resensitize you to that hypertrophic stimulus, but it also is probably beneficial from a psychological standpoint of, hey, we can probably just bring volume down and maintain with a few sessions in the gym and really focus on other things in our life for a few months here, and maybe be a little bit more flexible with our nutrition. And that can kind of be a psychological relief for certain people if kind of getting stressed out from doing hypertrophy over and over and over again. And it can also potentially help clear up any injuries, any little niggles, help clear up some joint strains and stuff like that. So for all those reasons, it might make sense to do a lower volume kind of resensitization phase every once in a while. Now, how often should someone do one of these phases and when should they do them? That's also up for debate. But I think that by paying attention to how you're responding to your hypertrophy training and keeping tabs on how you're looking, you might start to be able to get a idea of maybe when one of these phases would be a good idea. So for example, if you're going through hypertrophy, and then you're continuously deloading and doing that sort of thing, and then you start to notice that you just don't feel very great after the end of a deload anymore, and you don't feel as fresh as you used to be, and you have some joint strains and stuff like that, then this might be a really good time to run one of these kind of lower volume phase to kind of clear that stuff up. Also, by taking measurements of like your waist circumference and photos, you can kind of get a little bit of a grasp on what your body composition is doing. And if you start to notice that, hey, maybe after 4 mesocycles of gaining and hypertrophy training, you notice that your waist circumference is just kind of increasing, but your performance in the gym doesn't seem to be increasing like proportional to your waist circumference, and it kind of just looks like you're putting on fat. Well, maybe that's a sign that, hey, maybe it's a decent idea to run one of these lower volume phases, or maybe do a mini cut or something like that to potentially sensitize ourselves a little bit more. But back to your question, are these needed? And do I think that there's going to be a huge difference for a guy that just does regular hypertrophy training, cutting and massing phases for 5 years compared to someone that sprinkles in these resensitization phases? I have a hard time seeing that there's going to be a huge difference in muscle growth between the two people. Now, if it's a couple of pounds for the resensitization group and they feel better and they feel healthier because their joints are in better condition from these lower volume phases, then that could be worth it. But I just don't think the difference is going to be huge, you know?
Yeah, I don't think that the difference will be extremely huge. My take on that is that the body is constantly trying to adapt, and in order to create new adaptations, you can't stress the body constantly, like maybe 2 or 3 years straight. You need to give it some rest, and that rest can be given through coming back to that maintenance volume. And also, I think that your life stress, not only the stress that you create in your training, also your life stress, because you have a life surrounding your training, right? And it can benefit from doing that maintenance volume. But as you said, there's not enough evidence that says that. So yeah, we can really do a statement here.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. I think those are good points as well. And I think that considering how this can benefit your life is an important consideration of them all, as much as it is for resensitization, for more muscle growth and stuff like that. Like, I think that if you know that you have a more stressful period coming up in your life, maybe you have a few weeks of finals. I know that you just got done.
Yeah, I'm on that right now. So
yeah, exactly. Or if you know that you'll be finishing up with school and looking for a job, or you're going on a trip for a couple weeks, these are perfect times to run a lower volume phase to where you can kind of be like, all right, this is going to benefit my life, and it can also benefit my future training and my future muscle growth as well. So those are important considerations as well there.
Yeah, that's it. Because also, like, the daily fatigue and the central nervous system fatigue it's pretty important. Because also, if your volume is too high and maybe you're not doing those resensitization phases, you might end up sleeping. Like finding it hard to sleep. Maybe having like some cramps also during training. I think that's a good idea to do those phases, even though that's not the evidence does not show us that that's needed. So I think that's all for this first phase of the podcast, and we will get into the second one right now.
Don't forget to rate the podcast on iTunes and leave a review. May the aesthetics be with you.